House Baratheon. House Baratheon of Storm's End is a great house of Westeros that traditionally rules the Stormlands on the eastern coast of Westeros, aptly named for its frequent storms, from their seat of Storm's End. House Baratheon became the royal house of the Seven Kingdoms, as House Baratheon of King's Landing, after Robert Baratheon led a rebellion against the Targaryen dynasty. At the end of the rebellion, Robert ascended the Iron Throne as Robert I and married Cersei Lannister after the death of Lyanna Stark. House Baratheon became officially extinct after the deaths of Stannis Baratheon and his family, but was revived when Robert's last known bastard was legitimized by Queen Daenerys Targaryen as Gendry Baratheon. House Baratheon's sigil is a crowned black stag on a gold field, and their house words are "Ours is the Fury." House Baratheon was founded by Orys Baratheon, a general in the army of King Aegon I Targaryen, the founder of the Targaryen dynasty who conquered the Seven Kingdoms. Orys Baratheon was also rumored to be Aegon's bastard half-brother. He defeated Argilac the Arrogant, the last of the Storm Kings, and captured his castle of Storm's End. For his accomplishments, Orys was made Lord of Storm's End and founded House Baratheon. Orys took the sigil and words of the defeated House Durrandon as his own, cementing his rule over the Stormlands by marrying Argella Durrandon, the daughter of the fallen Argilac. Lord Robert Baratheon led a rebellion against King Aerys II Targaryen after his eldest son and heir, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, ran off with Robert's betrothed, Lyanna Stark. Robert, who was backed by Eddard Stark, Jon Arryn, and Hoster Tully, slew Rhaegar at the Battle of the Trident, and King's Landing, the capital of the Seven Kingdoms, was soon afterwards sacked by Tywin Lannister in Robert's name. At the end of the rebellion, Ned Stark found his sister Lyanna in the Tower of Joy in Dorne, where she died, in a bed of blood. With the last known Targaryens, Prince Viserys and Princess Daenerys, having fled across the narrow sea to the free cities of Essos, Robert ascended to the Iron Throne as King Robert I. He was wed to Tywin's daughter, Cersei Lannister, and thus formed the royal cadet branch House Baratheon of King's Landing. Robert appointed Jon Arryn as his hand. When Robert became the new king, he left his youngest brother Renly Baratheon, who was only a child at the time, to rule the Stormlands from Storm's End. Meanwhile, he appointed his middle brother Stannis Baratheon as the new Lord of Dragonstone. Dragonstone was traditionally the seat of the heir to the Iron Throne. This formed the cadet branch House Baratheon of Dragonstone, which was solidified by Stannis' marriage to Celis Florent. This also made Stannis the liege lord of several minor outlying islands of the Crownlands which were in Blackwater Bay. This was seen as an insult to Stannis, who had failed to capture the last Targaryens at Dragonstone when he assaulted the storm-ridden island, as windswept and isolated Dragonstone was not as wealthy or prestigious as Storm's End. However, Stannis was a proven military commander, and a loyal vassal of his experience was needed to reign in Dragonstone, whose lord ruled over the houses that had been the most loyal to House Targaryen. Renly and Stannis both served on Robert's small council as Master of Laws and Master of Ships, respectively. However, they were still referred to as lords rather than princes even after Robert's ascension to the throne, since they belonged to lower branches of House Baratheon. Game of Thrones, Season 1. Robert Baratheon travels to Winterfell to ask his old friend Eddard Stark to serve as the new hand of the king, after the sudden and mysterious death of Jon Arryn. Robert seeks to unite houses Baratheon and Stark once and for all by marrying Sansa to his eldest son and heir Joffrey. Ned attends his first small council meeting, where he learns that Robert has allowed the realm to fall into bankruptcy, and is in massive debt to House Lannister, who in turn owes a tremendous amount of gold to the Iron Bank of Braavos. Ned resigns his hand after Robert orders him to consent to the assassination of Daenerys Targaryen. Robert forces Ned to continue serving his hand, while he goes hunting. Ned deduces that Robert's children with Cersei are actually bastards born of incest between Cersei and Jaime. Ned sends a message to Stannis Baratheon, informing him of this, as he has been revealed to be the rightful heir to the throne. Robert is mortally wounded by a boar, after drinking too much wine. At his deathbed, Robert has Ned write his will, naming Ned the Lord Regent and Protector of the realm upon his death until Joffrey comes of age. Ned, knowing the truth of Joffrey's parentage, rewrites this to the rightful heir. Robert eventually succumbs to his wounds and dies. Renly, who previously urged Ned to support his own claim to the throne, flees the capital. Cersei has Joffrey crowned as the king. Ned's attempt to foil them results in the killing of his servants and his arrest and subsequent execution. The War of the Five Kings begins. Game of Thrones, Season 2. Both Stannis and Renly Baratheon declares themselves the rightful kings. Following the unsuccessful parley between them, Renly is killed by a shadow. The Tyrells form an alliance with the Lannisters. Stannis is defeated by the combined Lannister-Tyrell army at the Battle of the Blackwater. Game of Thrones, Season 3. Gendry, a bastard son of Robert, is brought to Dragonstone and forcibly used for the leech ritual. Davos sets Gendry free, and persuades Stannis to assist the Night's Watch. Game of Thrones, Season 4. After receiving a loan from the Iron Bank of Bravos and hiring sellswords, Stannis marches north and defeats the Wildling army at the Battle of Castle Black. Game of Thrones, Season 5. Stannis is defeated by the Boltons at the Battle of Winterfell. Brienne kills Stannis, ending the legitimate bloodline of House Baratheon. Game of Thrones, Season 6. Though House Baratheon is in fact no more, King Tommen of the still surviving cadet branch House Baratheon of King's Landing continues to use the Baratheon name to legitimize his rule, thus leaving House Baratheon still legally intact. Following Tommen's death, House Baratheon becomes legally extinct. Game of Thrones, Season 7. Tyrion and Davos travel to King's Landing, and find the unrecognized bastard Gendry, the last living person with Baratheon blood through his father. Gendry joins the group which goes beyond the wall to capture a White. Game of Thrones, Season 8. House Baratheon is legally restored when Queen Daenerys Targaryen legitimizes Gendry, who fought at the Battle of Winterfell. Gendry is named Lord of Storm's End. As the new head of House Baratheon, Gendry consolidates control over the Stormlands. Later, he participates in the Great Council of 305 AC along with one of his bannermen, Lord Unn, and agrees to the ascension of Bran Stark as the new king of the Undulls and the First Men. Military strength. House Baratheon men-at-arms are equipped with long padded beige gambesons and nasal helmets with stag crests, and they carry triangular shields. Other men-at-arms have kettle steel helmets instead of nasal helmets, and some are often seen wearing pauldrons and gorgets as well. Stormlanders are known for being brave and hardy warriors, as exemplified by the Baratheons. In Robert's Rebellion and Greyjoy Rebellion, House Baratheon plays an incredibly significant part, since in both wars Robert Baratheon is leading his side to victory. In the beginning of the War of the Five Kings, Renly assembles troops of both the Stormlands and the Reach, a total of about 100,000 men. After his assassination, many of the Stormlords and at least two houses of the Reach, House Florent and House Fossaway, join Stannis. Stannis' forces number at least 10,000 before the Battle of the Blackwater, and there are presumably more troops left to guard Stannis' castles while most of his troops attack the capital, resulting in the Battle of the Blackwater. Vassal houses. House Connington of Griffin's Roost. House Errol of Haystack Hall. House Estermont of Greenstone. House Grandison. House Morrigan of Crow's Nest. House Muscood. House Peasbury. House Tarth of Evenfall Hall. House Toyne, extinct. House Trant. House Seaworth. House Wild of the Rain House. Houses from the Dornish Marches. House Cairn of Nightsong. House Dondarrion of Blackhaven. House Selmy. House Swan of Stonehelm. Houses from Blackwater Bay. House Valerion of Driftmark. In the books. In the A Song of Ice and Fire novels, Orys Baratheon was the rumored bastard half-brother of King Aegon I Targaryen, the conqueror of the Seven Kingdoms. Orys led an army which slew the last of the Storm Kings, Argilac the Arrogant, and captured his castle of Storm's End. For his loyal service, Orys was made a lord and allowed to found his own great house, marrying the daughter of Argilac and taking his sigil and words for his own. At just under 300 years, this makes House Baratheon the youngest by far of the great houses. House Baratheon has ruled over the Tempest-racked southeastern shores of Westeros, the area known as the Stormlands, ever since. It has produced a number of great and notable warriors, such as Ser Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, and married into the royal house Targaryen several generations ago. When Robert Baratheon's betrothed, Lyanna Stark, was kidnapped by Rhaegar Targaryen, he was enraged and raised his banners in rebellion against King Aerys II, along with Lyanna's brother, and Robert's best friend, Eddard Stark. They were joined by several other houses in a civil war known as Robert's Rebellion. Robert's army smashed the royal host at the Battle of the Trident and put it to rout. The treachery of House Lannister delivered the capital at King's Landing to Robert. With Lyanna killed during the war, Robert agreed to marry Cersei Lannister in gratitude for her father's pledge of fealty. Robert became king and he made his brother Stannis, 1 year younger than him, the Lord of Dragonstone, the ancestral island stronghold of the Targaryens, and his youngest brother Renly, 15 years younger, Lord of the familial seat at Storm's End. In a very minor difference to the books, after crowning himself king, Renly doesn't alter the colors of the Baratheon sigil. However, he wears a golden stag on green, though not as an official personal sigil. Following the death of Robert and Renly, the only surviving members of House Baratheon are Stannis, his wife, and his daughter Shireen. No mention has been made in the 5 current novels of any surviving cousins, who might make claim to rule of House Baratheon. Robert is rumored to have fathered over a dozen bastards, but they are not considered legitimate heirs. Robert does have one acknowledged bastard, Edric Storm, whom he acknowledged because his mother was a member of the nobility. Robert had no part in raising him, instead sending him to foster at Storm's End. In the TV series, their banner depicts a stag with a crown around its neck, while in the novels, the crown is above its head. A widespread fan assumption for some time was that because the Baratheons were not kings like the Durrandons had been, they stopped using a crown on their stag sigil, and just used a plain stag for the next 3 centuries, and only recently re-added a crown to the stag, after Robert's rebellion when Robert overthrew the Targaryen kings. However, when the Baratheons make appearances during the Tales of Dunk and Egg prequel novellas, particularly Lionel Baratheon, they are consistently described as used a crowned stag, even though the Targaryens are still the royal family and they are not. Asked about this in 2015, Elio Garcia, owner of Westeros.org, stated that according to materials that George R.R. Martin sent him when co-writing the World of Ice and Fire sourcebook, the Baratheons indeed always used a crowned stag sigil, starting from when Orys founded House Baratheon and exactly copied the Durrandon heraldry, through Robert's rebellion. The TV series, however, contradicted this in Season 1's The Wolf and the Lion. When Bran is asked by Maester Luwin about the heraldry of the great houses, he explicitly says that the Baratheon stag only has a crown now, after Robert became the king. It isn't clear if this was a deliberate change for the TV continuity, or more probably, if the TV scriptwriters also made the common mistake of assuming the Baratheons didn't use a crowned stag before Robert seized the Iron Throne. Houses sworn to House Baratheon in the books, yet to appear in the series. House Buckler of Bronzegate. House Catherine of Fontun. House Fell of Fellwood. House Mertens of Mistwood. House Penrose of Parchments. According to the TV series' official pronunciation guide developed for the cast and crew, Baratheon is pronounced Baratheon.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.